Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Young Leadership Associates this evening. My name is Jill Goltzer, and I'm the Director of Young Leadership and Social Media for the American Society for Yad Vashem. We're so glad you could all tune in tonight for this special program, Testimony Through Art with David Kassan. Before we begin, I'd like to bring your attention to the Q&A feature on Zoom, where we invite you all to share your questions for David throughout the program. We promise to get to as many of them as possible. Now I'd like to introduce the chairs of this evening's event, Lara and Alex Levine, both the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors and proud members of our YLA board.
Thank you all for joining us for this special event. I have been involved in YLA for the past 5 years. My paternal grandfather was in Germany during Kristallnacht. My grandfather, his parents, and sister fled on the last ship out of Germany. About 4 years ago, I was fortunate enough to join my husband Alex and his grandfather Ed Mosberg on a trip to Poland for the March of the Living. I am very grateful for this experience. We are very excited to have David Kassan here tonight. David has painted over 40 Holocaust survivors. As an artist and an art teacher, it is a great honor to introduce you all to David Kassan.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me, hopefully? Just wanted to double check on all the audio and everything. It's a huge honor to be asked to draw Ed for you guys today and tonight through the iPad, and to kind of share my project and my journey that I overtook probably about 6 years ago now, to meet as many Holocaust survivors as I could and interview them, sit down with them, get to know their families, and then subsequently do a painting or drawing of them, or both. And hopefully have the work on exhibit so that those paintings and those legacies can carry on within something archaic but kind of lasting as a painting. And so this is kind of going to go through my process of what I do sketching, usually right after I meet a survivor, and I'll get photo reference back, or I'll get a photo from my phone, and I'll be on an airplane heading home. I usually will do some sketches on my iPad because it's pretty accessible. And so I brought my iPad here. So I'm going to be using an iPad Pro, and with Procreate is the software. But first, I kind of wanted to show you guys a video about my project, and a film that is being worked on by a director and a producer out in Hollywood, or out in LA. I guess Hollywood's part of LA. I don't really know, but out there. And they've become really good friends of mine too. And Ed's actually featured in this little the trailer, and then I'm going to show you guys a clip about Ed so we get to know Ed a little bit better before I start the drawing. So please bear with me. Here's the quick trailer.
Anne Frank says in her diary, when she dies, she would like to become immortal. And that is really what we all would like to be. We all want to leave something behind, because death is scary. If there is enough material that people will remember me, I would be very happy about that.
My name is David Kassan. I'm a painter. Right now, I have met with 42 Holocaust survivors all around the world. Doing these paintings has been a way of connecting with my own family history. My father had a kind of a disconnect from his family and being Jewish, and that's something that I've been trying to find in my work, learning from the survivors about what they've been through in their history. I can get closer to what my grandfather went through. What drew me to painting was this idea that you're kind of leaving behind a mark that's going to last a lot longer than you. I've been able to travel almost all over the world for this.
Hello, come in.
Painting is my excuse to learn about other people's lives. Everything starts with the conversation with the survivor and getting to know them and interviewing them.
They came, the Gestapo, all of a sudden without knowledge, and they start grabbing everybody in cars.
Everything was taken away from me.
Well, this is a menorah for the traveler Jew. This is like from 1800.
Before I do the paintings, I like to do a lot of sketching. I think of a painting as being something that's blurry at first, that needs to kind of come into focus as you work on it.
My kindergarten remains here, the only one that survived. We left everything behind us. I remember my mother just grabbed me and threw me to the snow, and she just said, "Don't move, don't make any noise."
I cannot conceive that people can be so inhuman to each other.
I want to define them more on what they've accomplished. What have they made of themselves? You know, what are the beautiful families that they've grown?
One day, I would like to have a girlfriend. I would like to have a baby too. And the day came, but in a happy way. There is nothing that I made up my mind that I didn't accomplish.
The whole project in the beginning was really grassroots. And it wasn't really until the Shoah Foundation stepped in and turned the series of paintings into a full-blown project. They were able to help me go out and find funding for the project and go meet survivors. This was the first painting in the series, right here. This is Sam Godofsky, and he's a survivor also of Auschwitz.
It just seemed apparent to us that if we could bring together the Fisher Museum and the Shoah Foundation to support David through this process of doing his first show with the survivors, it would be an amazing thing to bring to the world. David Kassan is investing in our future. Every time that he paints one of these Holocaust survivors, it's not about the past, actually, it's about the future, all of our futures. It's the stories they will continue to tell for generations to come.
I kind of want this idea that they're cemented, they're in amber in a way. You know, painting, I feel, does that.
The power of bringing these testimonies into a traditional museum space was really something that was a first.
The fact that he went into such detail with each of these people when he met them, it shows in the paintings.
The future for this project is I want to continue to try to paint as many survivors as I can. And so I feel as a painter now, I'm trying to preserve the essence of a person within something that's going to be lasting.
Hey, you.
I think with this project, I think the most important aspect is the urgency that we have, and that it's really time sensitive because unfortunately we're losing survivors every single day. Hey, it's David Kassan, the artist. I just can't wait to paint you. Just want to let the credits roll by on that because I have such a great team that are helping me actually make these trailers and videos and recording these testimonies. It's pretty incredible. That was edited by Jeffrey Schneider, who is the director for a film that they're going to come out with, and it's being produced by Chris Panzion and Richard Farmer. Am I still on? Actually, I'm not sure if I see Alex's picture or not.
You are still on. We canceled our videos so that everyone can see you fully.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was a little worried there because awesome.
We're still here.
Okay, cool. I know you guys. I want to get to painting and stuff like that, but I think that the understanding the foundation of who we're painting and why we're here is really important, especially as an artist. You know, I think that it's so important. So I want to kind of show you guys kind of an inside clip from when we visited Ed, 2018, in Morrisburg. I think Morrisburg, is that correct? Morrisburg, New Jersey. Yeah, I just plugged it into the GPS and drove there with a rental car. So and so here's a quick clip of Ed with his wife, actually, Cecile, who unfortunately we lost a little over a year ago now. Sorry about that, Alex and Barry and everybody. I'm actually doing a painting of Cecile right now. What is her Polish name again?
Sesha.
Sesha. I can't commit that to memory. I apologize, but I think it's so beautiful. I'm gonna have Alex do some of his Polish accent for us later. When he takes on the role of his grandfather, and it's pretty incredible. So I'm going to play another quick little video clip from when we met with Ed so you guys can understand Ed. He's a really strong individual. He's a little goofy now that I'm learning more about it, talking to his family. But he's just strong in his strength and you can see his passion in this little clip that we edited. So this is behind the scenes. It's never been seen by very many people at all. So you guys are getting the inside kind of what it's like to be in someone's house and hear their testimony from my perspective. And that's kind of, we want to bring you on the journey. That's why I like filming so much. I love the medium as well as painting.
I survived and I lost my family. So I always say how important it is to have family and to live together in peace. Because this is very, very important. You finished? Good. I'm holding. Sashenko, open your eyes. Yeah, and I'm with you. I was showing them the picture of your sisters, okay? Your mother, your father, and use you. You know, Mishkula. You know what happened to them? Yes? Tak? You know, I was just now in Poland and I spoke about how they murder our family. Because this is very important that the world don't forget what happened. And you know, as long as I live, I will never forget. And I always will go and talk because we have to talk. And you told me when I asked you, you said I should go to Poland, right? Yes? Mamushka, yes? Did you want me to go? I said, yes? You told me, but I'm back already. I am back to be with you. She was ashamed that she survived. So she was always hiding. She was always covering that up. I remember. Because a lot of people, when they survived, they were ashamed they should survive. And not me. I always was wearing my number from Mauthausen. The people know what happened.
So that gives you kind of a really kind of insight to really understand Ed's relationship with his family. And for me as a painter, it's interesting. So I think of my paintings as not being necessarily historical eyewitness kind of accounts, because I obviously am not that old to have been there to witness it. But I want to represent the families and the lives that these survivors have had afterwards and the legacy that they have. And having this idea that I'm able to paint them and learn from their family is really important to me. Like Alex and Lara and Jill, you guys are the legacy of these amazing survivors, you know, that are going into the world and being empathetic voices for their testimony, is which I also hope to kind of embody within the paintings I'm doing. That said, I kind of want to start in, I guess, on the drawing for a little bit, and then we're going to kind of keep it easy going. I want to talk with Alex back and forth. He's going to ask questions. If you guys have any questions at all for me on the chat, it's going to be hard for me to draw and look at the chat and stay current exactly. And so I think Alex and Jill and Lara are going to be helping me out with that. I'm going to try to explain the process.
And if you want to, rather than in the chat, if you want, that's fine too, but you can do the Q&A feature, which is on the bottom of your screen, of the Zoom screen. You'll see you'll see Q&A. Sorry, I said screen. So yeah, feel free.
yeah, feel free to ask as many questions as you guys want. They're going to probably read what, they might filter them a little bit, and they're going to kind of go through. Before we start, I kind of want to show you guys some of the sketches that I've done. I carried a sketchbook with me for 5 years, and I had a museum show in 2019, and the curators wouldn't let me do prints of the sketchbook, so I had to slice the sketchbook up a little bit. But no, I didn't really want to do it. It was something that was kind of, I like this idea of having a body work all together, but it did add to the exhibition to see kind of in progress shots to get my thought process behind each painting. And here's some of the sketches that I was doing when I was working. I'll try to hold it. It's going to be at an angle so you don't reflect my screen too much. But I take notes on the sketches. So this is Dario Gabay, who we met with in Los Angeles. We were fortunate to get some funding to travel to LA, Warsaw, Krakow, Toronto, London, and New Jersey to meet with survivors. And so Dario, this is a painting I'm actually still working on right now, but this is kind of the head study for that piece. We went to Toronto and I got to visit with Ellie Gotts, who's a really awesome inventor. And so we met with Ellie Gotts, and I'm working on a painting of him as well right now that's in the studio. And behind me is, I don't know if you guys can see it over here. There's a drawing I'm working on of, or what I finished in my sketchbook, I'm still painting him, of Martin Greenfield, who's based in Brooklyn, New York, and who's a tailor. So I used to do sketches like that, but then also on the iPad as well. I'm constantly just trying to kind of understand the subject of who I'm painting through drawing. Not necessarily thinking about it as a product at all, but having the experience of getting to know them and recording my thoughts within some type of medium. Either those are done with coal erase brown pencils, which are color pencils that are slightly erasable. Something just popped up. Oh, cool, interesting. Thanks. And that's done in a moleskin sketchbook with pretty thin paper. And then I also do sketches on the iPad as well as I travel. And this is just an iPad Pro. My iPad's maybe 5 or 6 years old, so I think that this process will work for most people if they have an older iPad, because I do. And the program that I'm going to be using is Procreate. Do you guys have any questions up front before I kind of get started?
So David, Laura has asked, what does the painting medium offer that other forms of expression can't?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think of it as being, I feel like today's world is very, very fast. And I think that slow mediums like painting is something that's kind of more contemplative and meditative. In a lot of cases, it's not saying that some photography and mediums like that are bad. It's just that it's kind of a human representation of another human. And I think in that case, it kind of makes things a little bit more one-on-one with the viewer in that case, instead of kind of something that's mechanically generated. Also, paintings tend to have a lasting quality to them, whereas I mean, you have paintings that are in museums that are preserved, that are lasting 500-600 years old. And I think if you do something really, really well and it has an inherent value, someone's going to want to take care of that painting. So it's kind of a thing that I always say, I kind of want to trap the stories kind of in this amber of painting that's, though it's archaic, it goes back centuries of our human development. We used to paint on walls to begin with to kind of understand the world around us and to communicate with one another. And so that kind of quality kind of seeps through even till today. It's kind of this idea, a friend of mine described it once at a lecture I went to of his, this guy, John Nava, who's an artist, friend of mine in Ojai, California, and kind of my mentor. He said that if you put your hand on a cave painting's hand, like a handprint from a cave painting, all that time and distance is erased. You're right there when that person put their hand on that painting. It's the same thing I feel with oil painting. You see the little bit of the hand of the artist, you see the subject, but then the subject's kind of a little bit more real because you're understanding what it is to kind of look through my eyes and see what I kind of want to express within the painting. As well as mostly, I'm very intrigued with the expression of the actual individual, more so than mine, but you still have my hand within the piece. So it's a great question.
David, we actually have Stephanie Kravitsky asked, why did you choose to paint your subjects in present day versus a different time period?
Yeah, no, I think that present day embodies their entire lives, and I think that we wear our entire life as a roadmap on our face and in our hands. And so for me, I want to kind of get at that idea that they've been through this entire life, rather than either right after the Holocaust or right after their first child was born, or all of that. I kind of want to have this kind of record and document of their history within themselves. I don't think of myself as a portrait painter, but I'm a painter that has portraits within my painting. So I think of backgrounds and textures and all that stuff to go along with the pictures to kind of give them this tactile realness to them, as opposed to just like painting somebody with all their favorite books or accomplishments. I want to paint them in a way that is striking and kind of exudes who they've been, as well as who they are right now.
So David, we have a lot of really good questions coming in.
Okay. So you can hold off and start. My camera here is focusing me now. I apologize. I'll go to something a better looking screen than me. So this will be, I'm going to put myself in the corner here. You guys see that? You guys can see my iPad?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to look at well, fortunately for me, I'm not going to be able to look at myself, but you guys will probably see my bald spot as I start to draw. So I'm just kind of starting out with Procreate. And feel free to ask me questions as I'm working.
Well, you know, one that comes up immediately is by Unique Fair Smith. How does your painting method change or stay the same when you jump between digital and traditional methods?
That's a great question. The basics are always usually the same. You know, I'm thinking proportions. I'm thinking, I actually try to bridge the gap between my painting process and my drawing process. If anyone's on here that has studied with me, I see some similar names and stuff, some of my students here. My drawing process feeds right into my painting process, and my digital process feeds into my drawing process as well. I think of things in terms of value, form, and shape, just as I would any other medium with charcoal. It is just a different approach, because you have to kind of go through rules that are set for you by the creator of the app, you know, versus what you usually have when you have work that charcoal you can be a little freer with. The thing about the iPad though, I like that it's accessible. I used to bring the iPad with me when I traveled to Europe and do color studies in museums, which I thought was really helpful, rather than just doing a painting of or doing a drawing in front of a painting that I loved. Doing a color study, I learned so much more about the color because I was really focusing on that aspect rather than it being a drawing exercise. Oh, I apologize, I'm getting these like weird pop-ups here. Okay, I think I turned it off. Sorry. And so that's a great question. I'm going to go through that as I start to work. I'm going to kind of explain how this method is very similar to my drawing process and how it differs. And for my students, I'm not going to start out with the block-in notan. I make my students do this notan to kind of focus on this idea of painting the simplistic form of it. So I'm going to do kind of that on the fly as I work. Awesome. So I'm going to start. I know you guys are waiting for that. I'm always like, when's he going to start? So I'm just going to come over here, test out kind of the colors. I'm going to be using the charcoals right here. So if you look at all these different types of charcoal, and what I like about the charcoal is it mimics charcoal a little bit. You know, it's not quite exactly how I use charcoal, but it's got a nice texture to it, which is really nice. And I'm still getting that weird. Are you guys hearing that little clipping? I apologize for that. I think that's on Facebook or something. We're also doing this Facebook Live. If you guys are watching on Facebook Live, you can get a better resolution and you can see all the questions and hear everything on the Zoom call if you guys register in the post. So you can kind of bring people here. Awesome, guys. So I'm going to start. So think about Ed. I want to kind of come into like the start to block out where the eyes are going to be from the center point, right? Blocking the shadow shapes of the orbital cavity in the very beginning, right? So we have kind of have our main idea of where the eyes are going to be. We're going to kind of filter down, measure down into where the nose is going to be. Underplane of the nose, where the upper lip is going to be. So we're building up the structure from a pattern of basically 5 shadow shapes to begin with, understanding that we have our eyes, orbital cavities, then we have the underplane of the nose, which is a cast shadow, the upper lip, underplane under the lip, here, where the chin is going to be. Right? Kind of filter out where the cheeks are going to lie. And fill in kind of where would the ears be, what's the top, where the forehead is going to be. What are my guideposts within these different areas to kind of help me measure? Where's the tear duct flowing into the other tear duct? If I work on one eye, I tend to jump from one eye to the other eye. Seeing things in just simplified shapes right now. I'm going to simplify what's going on in the orbital cavity in the eye. It's kind of cool, I can see it in real time on the screen as I'm working as well.
So David.
Yes.
We have a couple of very good questions, one of which is from Michelle Doblin, and she was wondering, how long does it take to make a portrait on average?
Yeah, it all depends. I don't put time limits ever on myself unless I have like an exhibition or a show, and usually like a couple months. So I've been painting your grandmother right now, which I'd love to unveil and show everybody kind of the process. It's still in progress, the painting, but that painting I started in end of December, and I'm still kind of working on it. But also, I work on like maybe 6 or 7 paintings at once, maybe even more, that are just around the studio. And I'm also teaching a lot of online classes, so that kind of slows me down a little bit with the getting things done, I guess. Besides, I'm also kind of really a perfectionist. I know it's hard to believe, right? It's funny, I don't get any laugh track at all while I'm doing my bad dad jokes here.
Everyone's on mute, but.
I'm counting on you, Jill.
I got you.
Oh, that's better. Got a little bit of light in my bedroom right now. There's all like unfortunately we have 2 sick kids. My stepkids have fevers right now, so they're getting tested tomorrow for COVID. It's crazy. So thinking about the hat that he's got, very iconic.
David, is there a way that you could show the picture that you're working off of?
That's a great idea. Let me, oh shoot, I think that's on another computer. We can also, when I start, yeah, if you, I don't know if right now I'm just using like a printout. But I wonder if I can do that though. It's gonna take me a few minutes to go and find it. I think it's on my other, actually, you know what? Let me look on Photoshop. Give me half a second, guys. I might have it on here. A file that I didn't even think about that. I thought of everything, but nope. Let's see if it's in this file, if we're lucky. And it's not in this file. Let me try another one.
So David, while
Thanks for bearing with me.
answering another question.
Yeah, go for it.
So Judy Freeman was wondering how you find and choose your subjects.
Yeah, so the whole project was very grassroots in the beginning. To meeting the survivors was a woman who had studied with me in Israel, had two parents that lived in New York, and since it's kind of been grassroots, I basically have been self-funding the project for the first maybe 3.5 years to find survivors and film them. My videographer was my main expense, was paying for her time and days and stuff like that, and footage and editing and stuff. My time was free, whatever. But the having that, I think I'm getting closer to getting the image. Sorry, guys. I printed. We have another computer hooked up to a printer that had the image on there. Let me go to Dropbox. Yeah, so it was all word of mouth pretty much, and then the Shoah Foundation, just like the video, I think I had mentioned that the Shoah Foundation kind of stepped in and helped out with trying to find survivors for me to paint and introduce me to other survivors, which has been huge. And then also Yad Vashem, you guys still have to introduce me to Tova. I think I tried to paint Tova. She's in New Jersey, I think, right?
And we actually have someone here with us who runs our events at the American Society for Yad Vashem. Rochelle, I'm signaling you out, who knows Tova very well and just spoke with her. So hopefully we can connect you two.
Yeah, she was amazing. So she gave a speech at one of your Shabbat dinners that I attended.
We met you.
And yeah, I think that's when we met, yeah. And she was incredible. You know, what I've learned is that the survivors, they speak so vividly of their childhood. And you almost, so I guess when someone's older, they kind of seem kind of smaller and everything. And it's almost like they're a child themselves as they're talking. And so you see this like youthfulness in what they're saying. And so like I was like transported to her being a small child going through what she went through and speaking. It was really, really powerful presentation of her life, you know? And it was incredible. I'm almost there, guys. Sorry, I'm gonna find this. I have a Dropbox where I usually keep things and send things off to.
Can you actually,
yes.
I think David Goldberg wanted to know about your experiences with Martin. He was the tailor to the presidents. I know that he has an incredible book, Measure of a Man, and he's actually spoken also for our young leadership. Could you tell us a bit about your experience with him?
Yeah, no, Martin was incredible. We met up with him at his shop in Brooklyn, Martin Greenfield Suits, and he's a tailor for, I think it was 4 or 5 presidents at the time, and it's pretty incredible. I think he had started there when he was like 14 or 15 years old and worked his way into owning the entire shop, which was incredible. I'm really learning about this kind of the spirit of survivors and how resilient they are in just building these lives for themselves. And I think he actually really reminded me of this idea of, I'm putting in the image right now, guys, sorry. I'll have the image. I don't want to go over it with the drawings so you guys can see it. Hopefully I'll get it to look like this.
Wow.
Send me a text if you get something. My wife just walked in. You want to say hi? My wife is amazing. So she's like my biggest support system.
I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt today.
She's wearing today's Hawaiian shirt day for our stepdaughter.
Hi guys.
So much stuff over here. I kind of built a makeshift studio. Yeah, is it empty? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, guys. So sorry about that. So Martin Greenfield, though, he's incredible. The painting I have actually is just right in the hallway that I've been working out of him, and I actually have him kind of rolling up his sleeves because when we were there with him, he was so into showing us exactly every step of the process of making a suit. Like we have video of him like not pushing aside, but gently saying, "Hey, move aside. Let me show them how this is sewn." You know what I mean? Or this is how we iron this part of the suit to sew this, or this is how this pattern is made. And the shop the Martin Greenfield shop where he makes everything is incredible. There's an entire floor of just patterns. And we got to go up to see all the patterns that he had. And then he had one floor, which was all the workers. And then he had the showroom. And a funny story about that is I had a friend who had a suit made by Martin. And he had said, hey, I'm going to visit Martin Greenfield and you should come with me. He's a survivor and you should get a suit made by him. And I'm like, oh, that'd be a great idea. And he's like, but my friend was kind of joking with me. He's like, but you got to buy the fabric first, and the fabric's a few $1,000s. It's only the best. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't think I can make it this time because I couldn't afford to buy the fabric to have the suit made, which I think it's way more affordable than he was making. He was just trying to give me, he was a Wall Street guy. So he was kind of needling me a little bit with that. But when I met him, it was great because he was doing a collaboration with J. Crew. I remember he was making J. Crew like suit jackets and blazers and everything. It was pretty neat. Okay, so you guys got the reference on here. So you guys can see kind of what I'm seeing now. And I'll go back to drawing. I apologize. I can go off on these stories forever. So again, starting in on the eyes. And hopefully you guys can kind of see my cursor as I'm kind of moving around here a little bit as I'm going. I'm starting a little bit lighter, and I'm going to kind of build up the process. I'm starting within the values of the paper that I have, the quote unquote digital paper. So I start with a mid-tone gray and then kind of work my way into lighter tones, lighter values as I start to develop things.
David, so we have
Yes.
another person, Vera Colina, wanted to know, have you ever painted a painting of a survivor that you found challenging to work on because of their stories? And does knowing the personal story affect how you paint?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, there's all the stories have been pretty heavy to do in the paintings. It's really interesting when we would do the interviews. I don't like asking questions that are that take people to a dark place in any way, shape, or form at all. And I know these things are really important for them to talk about because this is that history and this is the stuff that people are denying that ever happened. I would if someone was starting to get upset when I was interviewing them, I would kind of go to a place of well, tell me about your family. Tell me those aspects, tell me about your successes and where you put your mind to things. And for me, that's the inspiring aspect. And so I don't think I've met a survivor so far that hasn't been inspiring to me to want to paint. And because I kind of dwell in the idea of the success stories of their resilience, that they're the winners. These are the survivors are the ones that weren't supposed to be alive. We beat the Nazis easily now, because we have these long legacies of amazing children and these lives that these people have lived, so they're the victor by far, not that we need to tell these stories so to kind of definitely keep stamping out hate, unfortunately, because we still have it today, which I don't understand because we're all human beings, and yeah, so I guess it hasn't been that I haven't been able to do a painting because of someone's story. Long story short, I apologize if I ramble. It's just that I think about the positive aspect of their lives, the things that are inspiring to other people.
David, do you try to paint the subjects exactly as they are? And if not, do you try to bring out or show the viewer something that they may not otherwise see? What kind of creative licenses do you take?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because in a lot of cases, I don't necessarily I want to paint everything as a document of the subject. So I want to be as honest and truthful as possible. I think of myself as a documentary painter in a lot of ways. And I guess the artistic license a lot of times is who I choose to paint. And the way I want to get everything out of the way so that you focus on them within the piece, as well as choosing the expression that they have within the piece. So when I painted Ed, it's really interesting. So I started doing this drawing of Ed on kind of similar to what I showed you guys earlier, the smaller drawing studies. And I was doing it on the plane on my way to London. And I had messaged the sketch over to Stephen Smith, who's works with the Shoah Foundation. And he looked at the sketch and he's like, wow, that's Ed, but that's not really Ed. You know, and then for me, I was like, okay, I know that, because this is a little bit more like wistful kind of feeling for him, I feel. Ed's more of a fighter. And so when I did the painting of Ed, I'll show you guys the painting just really quick. I'm going to jump out of here for 1/2 second here. When I did the painting of Ed, I took that into consideration and wanted to make him look like he was a fighter, you know, where he almost has his hands up like a fighter, you know, and he's holding a painting, a photograph of his wife, of Cecile, of her. And so I wanted to kind of have this, that aspect of him a bit more. So that's kind of artistic license in understanding the expression of the person that you're trying to paint. And that's something that I'm just trying to be the better artist and trying to express that aspect, as opposed to a technical aspect, where for me, it's not like there's a bright red background within this person because that says something, versus having the subject speak to the viewer, as opposed to anything quote unquote artistic that I would do to speak to the viewer.
So Avi Felberbaum has a great question. As you can see, my grandfather was posing, as you said, with his hands up in his uniform. So Avi was wondering, how do you decide how the survivor will pose? And he has a follow-up question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I usually have the survivor just be as natural as they can. I do kind of adjust hands a little bit because I love painting hands, but as a painter, I used to paint only for life for about 7 or 8 years. And in the studio, you can adjust someone's hand so that you can see all the fingers and understand things and understand the joints, so it makes sense. With photography, a lot of times, if you're just focusing on someone's expression and not their hands will be kind of like cropped in a weird way, or just look kind of unnatural. And so I'm always trying to make the hands just a little bit more natural within their natural stance of how they are. And we almost kind of slightly consult with them with how they want to be represented. Ed wanted to wear his uniform, which isn't his original uniform, but he wears it out of this idea where he doesn't want to hide his story at all. And he wears his number so that he can educate, you know, so he wants to be a loud voice when it comes to Holocaust education. And he said he thinks that this is, I mean, you would know better, Alex, right? That this is kind of an expression of, yes, ask me a question about this, you know? Like, I'm not ashamed of what I went through. I'm proud of my resilience in being through it. And he speaks up for his family, which was murdered. You know, he's there. You saw in the video that I played earlier where he talks about that.
Absolutely. So Avi has a quick follow-up question. How did you decide how to frame the way that they're posing?
How to frame? You know, it's interesting. So with the painting I'm working on of Cecile right now, it's I actually had a wider space in the painting originally, and I kind of cropped in a little bit, so it was a little bit more intimate. It all depends. Just around, I want to have some air around the subject. I think of things first when I'm designing a composition, kind of a formalistic aspect where everything is a shape and color and design, before I get into kind of emotive aspects within a piece. So I kind of think of things abstractly and then build upon that. So sometimes if there's, in the painting I did of Martin, I wonder if I have a photo of that. I have all these things on my Instagram, but Instagram's become a cool resource for that. I probably can bring that up too. But on that painting, I wanted some more air to kind of breathe around Martin because of the pose. It's always different, to be honest with you. It's just kind of a feeling thing of kind of what I want artistically at that moment. I'm not guided by a formula for what it is I'm doing. I really want it to kind of flow naturally and be, each piece is going to be kind of a different, I think my drawings are a little bit more kind of in tone where they kind of fit all together. And I did that for an exhibition versus how I think of the paintings, which are a little bit more freeform. So I'm just kind of I'm still finding little nooks and crannies in here. Great question.
David, what's the most difficult part of the process?
Difficult part of the process, wow. So I think getting the time to be able to make the paintings, maybe. I have to really think about that. That's a great question. Let me, it's not like a difficult thing to do the paintings for me, because for me, the learning process for me is exciting, right? So first I love history. I love meeting these amazing individuals, hearing their full spectrum of humanity. I guess trying to capture that sense of humanity is something I feel like I'm not quite always getting to as much as I'd like. And I think I'd like to do that better. But yeah, time, I think I get it with time. I think of these pieces as not like, I'm not making paintings to sell at a gallery, although I do unfortunately have to sell the paintings to survive. And so some collectors have gotten behind the kind of idea of preserving these pieces and have purchased them from me, which is amazing. I don't really do commissions at all. I rarely do commissions. So they've been kind of helping me to, like, you know, pay my bills and everything while I'm able to do the paintings. But yeah, what's the most difficult part? I guess spending enough time where you do justice to the individual. And I like to take my time. And I like I said, I'm kind of a perfectionist in a way where I want to kind of be as authentic with the pieces as possible. And so I think that's something I could get better at.
David, do you show the subject of your paintings, the work as it progresses, or do you show them the result at the very end?
Yeah, it depends. There's a survivor in LA that I started a drawing of, and she actually sat for me for a drawing at one of the Shoah Foundation events, and she hated the drawing, unfortunately. And I already had the painting already planned out in my head exactly how I was going to do it, and she didn't want to be part of the series. So some people don't like how I paint, and that's totally fine. You know, I don't, because you see my work online or on these shiny devices, it comes across, I think, as photorealistic. But when I paint, there's a lot of texture, and I want texture to kind of look like it's maybe more realistic. So it has a tactile feel to it. So it's a little bit more living than a reproduction of a photograph within paint. But that said, I think some people think I paint too many warts and too many wrinkles and stuff like that. And people are vain. I totally get it. Do you know what I mean? I think we all think of ourselves at our best moment in life, like when we're maybe in our 20s or 30s or whenever we feel like we were our best looking, you know, and then to age, you kind of are kind of maybe in denial of what you do look like. I don't know, we just don't want to be represented that way. And so I run into that issue a little bit, which is why I'm a horrible portrait commission artist. I don't really beautify anybody. I don't think. I don't know. I have friends that have like beautifying filters when they paint. They make everything beautiful, and it's like absolutely gorgeous what they do. You know, I just don't have that kind of thing. I'm really, really keyed in and trying to be as honest and as authentic as possible. And I think that kind of lends itself to whom I'm painting too. You know, we want to be truthful and honest with our subject, with this subject especially.
Do you ever get nervous to show the finished product?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous to show the painting of Cecile. Guys, I showed you quickly yesterday. It was all back. I sent you guys an email of it, I think. You know, I mean, because I think that we all have different, I think even family members have different kind of feelings of their parents and don't want to see them age. And I'm unfortunately catching people at a lower point, like towards the end of their lives, you know, so they might not be in the best health or whatever. and but still I'm trying to make something heartfelt out of that. Yeah, so I think that's always a worry, that they don't feel like I've respected them. You know, that kind of wears me down a little bit, you know. But I totally get it again. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I don't understand like why they're like that. I'm losing daylight in my room real quick. I'm gonna go turn on a light. Like I can barely see my reference here. Just like 1 second. Sorry, guys. Oh, that's much better.
David, I just want to change gears for a quick second and talk a little bit about you. So,
okay.
Can you tell us, how does this work connect to your heritage? And can you tell us a little bit about, you know, your dad and your grandfather?
Yeah. So what was really interesting about this whole project, and I didn't really think about it in a way of when I first started. The whole project kind of started was a guy asked me to do a portrait commission of his mother-in-law, who was a survivor, and it's only until I started kind of seeing, meeting folks and learning about my own family's history was my grandfather escaped ethnic cleansing in 1920 to come to America from Ukraine, where his like shtetl town was wiped out by the Cossacks. And the story, I'm learning more because I've been posting these, I've been learning more about my own history from people on Facebook that are relatives of mine that are distant, that are now getting in touch. My grandfather, he was not a nice guy at all. He left my dad's family when my dad was only 15 years old. And so it's weird for me to want to understand his life, but I was kind of blocked off from it because my dad never wanted to talk about him or anything. And he came over when he was 3 years old, and his whole family was in a displaced persons camp. I'm just learning this stuff now, the history of that. And it's, there's some parallels, I think, with what the survivors have gone through. He definitely didn't go through what Holocaust survivors, I think, went through. But it makes me, I never really knew my grandparents at all on either side. And I'm really interested to find out about my grandmother's side. My dad's mother, she was a music teacher in Long Island. And when she's the resilient one. You know, she was a music teacher when her husband left in the 50s, you know, and she was able to survive. And I'm curious about her family in Poland, because it's kind of like a disconnect for me where I don't know the history of that side of my family at all yet, you know, and so this is kind of making me want to find out what happened. Did they come to America? Were they wiped out and murdered in the Holocaust? I don't know, you know, and so meeting individuals like these, they're slightly becoming, I think, surrogate grandparents for me, I feel, in a way. I just love history and I love the idea of family. And it's kind of a thing where I never had that, but I'm like, so in love with trying to find that within other people and their relationships, you know? So I think that it's definitely been like kind of an eye-opening thing of me just kind of understanding more about family and also my Jewish heritage, because when I grew up, they didn't have a lot of money, and my dad joined the Air Force and I was a military brat. So we would travel every 3.5, 4 years to different Air Force bases all over the world. For instance, I was born in Arkansas in Jacksonville. And then from there, I got a little baby passport photo, which is pretty awesome, from when I was 1.5 years old, because we moved to Germany. We moved to Ramstein Air Force Base. And then from there, we moved to South Jersey, New Jersey, where basically I grew up and went to high school. And so it's been, they never were really into finding a synagogue or a temple to kind of attend to. It wasn't something that was kind of important for my father because he was just busy trying to scrap to get by. And I don't know about anything other than that, why he didn't know anything more about the religion. And I tried to do Hanukkah when I was a kid and everything, and it was only just me. But since I also got married, my wife grew up in a very religious household, you know, and so I've been learning more about Judaism through her, through the survivors I'm meeting, and I'm actually learning about how important it is really to kind of carry on these traditions and about the religion, you know. So it's been really, really, really interesting. So it's kind of, the paintings again are like an excuse for me to understand family, understand tradition and heritage and ethnicity, and just use anything I do as a painter, because painting is so selfish. It really is. It's kind of like, you start painting at first kind of like, does this look right, or am I bettering my vision? Am I making something look like artistic so that people can give me compliments or whatever, or good or bad? And I'm always trying to figure out ways that I could make something that would benefit somebody outside of myself, you know? That painting would be something that's selfish, and I get the biggest benefit out of doing the paintings. You know, I get to firsthand live my life trying to understand all these survivors and their lives, and understanding coping mechanisms, which are all totally different, and see this, again, this full spectrum of humanity in a very minute way by studying their faces and everything in their hands. But there's also the other aspect, which I'm learning from doing the paintings as well, is that it's a way of honoring these survivors in a way, and maybe the families will like the paintings I do, hopefully, you know, or just, again, preserving their legacy in some way that's a little bit different, that can't be deleted, you know, or altered. I don't know. I like to ramble. I apologize.
As someone noted on Facebook, you're not rambling, you're just expressing your passion for this, and it's really great to hear.
Oh, cool.
We have an interesting question. Actually, someone said, would you ever consider doing a similar series with victims of anti-Semitism in current times?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a great idea. And I want to encourage other people of different ethnicities to kind of find out about their history, and so that they can tell stories of other genocides and everything, so that, again, I think the more information we have out there in an artistic way, again, painting being like one of the first ways that we communicate with one another way back when, that it can be something that's a little bit more powerful than some other mediums. But yeah, I think that yeah, it's really it's sad that, like, so I'll get some anti-Semitic comments a lot on my Instagram posts and all that stuff. But what I find, what I have been lucky to kind of see, is that, you know, there's way more people that are hopeful about things, and the anti-Semitic comments and everything are really tiny. You know, I feel like there's more good out in the world than there is bad, and that I think we're gonna win. You know.
That's amazing to hear. Very
hopefully, we can't stop fighting. You know, and how do we fight anti-Semitism, right? So there's a book by Bari. What's her last name? I think I just finished it. She used to write for the New York Times for a while until she discovered
Very wise.
Yeah.
Very wise. Yeah. So the idea, I think, what my takeaway from that was, like, the best way to fight anti-Semitism is make your art. You know, do what you do. You know, be kind of make this a call to action for everybody that's listening. You know, make your art in a way that it's helping someone other than yourself. If I can just say that. You know, it fights more than just anti-Semitism. You know, it fights anti-everything. You know.
That actually that's a good segue into next question by Unique Fair Smith. What is your opinion on painting as a means of activism, or as a political tool that empowers the oppressed?
Yeah, no, it's really, it's hard for me to think of it as, I wish I had more stuff to say about that was a little bit more thoughtful. I think of it as, I mean, in the camps, I learned that, you know, the arts and culture were so powerful there, you know, and I love the culture that is my ethnicity of being Jewish, you know, and I'm proud of all the culture that we have, and the musicians and the artists and all of that stuff. And I want to be part of that lineage. Is activism, being an act, I mean, yeah, I have to think about that more because I'm not necessarily a great fan of propaganda type stuff. I mean, I think that I was really appalled by the police brutality of Elijah McClain that happened in Aurora, Colorado. And I saw that I went online and saw the photos of this very like young, innocent, like black boy. And I was like, wow, like I can't believe what happened to him. And you hear the tapes of him talking about how he's like, we're in this together, you know, as he's being like put into the ground by these police officers. And it's heartbreaking. And so I thought I could do just a quick 4 or 5 day painting or whatever to give like his image a little bit more high resolution for people. And so I did the painting and just sent it off to the family as a way, but it was kind of a way of just being an ally to that community, not having to worry about that myself, you know, being white, but going through some anti-Semitism when I was a kid, but nothing like major, you know, it's just really unimaginable that we still have that stuff happening today. And I thought about doing a thing with this new, do you guys, so I was talking to Jill about this and Alex, NFTs, which is like kind of like taking over my world lately, which is these non-fungible tokens thing. It's like an online currency that I was thinking about making a digital image of the painting I did of Elijah and being able to auction that off through cryptocurrency to be able to send 100% of the sale. The painting I just sent to them. So I said, you guys can sell this, you can auction it, you can keep the painting, you can do whatever you want with it. But if I could do like a digital image that I could sell, because all these things are kind of blowing up, it's kind of weird. I'm still learning about it with friends of mine like Richard, who was on here earlier, about kind of figuring out a way that we could do it as a way to do art, again, that's like charitable. I think of it charity versus activism more so. If there's things I can do that can help a cause, I'm all for that, if it's possible. Again, trying to think outside of myself and having my selfish experience kind of help other people in a way. I guess I feel like I have a guilt trip, I guess, with being able to do something I absolutely adore and having the honor of having people that care about what I do and ask me to do it. I mean, like sitting right here right now is awesome. You know, I'm doodling while I'm talking to you guys. And
David.
Yes.
Speaking of which, do you find this process spiritual at all or cathartic, or is this just technical?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I talk about this with my students that I find it very, it's very meditative for me. And it's the idea that you're kind of, I listen to a lot of music. I put on the news sometimes while I work and stuff, but the best moments are kind of with just music, where I'm kind of in my own head thinking of ideas and thinking about the person and the story behind the paintings. The aspects that are kind of interesting is, so it's like a left brain, right brain thing. I think that when I started out painting, it was all technical, and that was, again, a very kind of selfish kind of thing where I wanted to get better at painting. And I really didn't have an outlet for a way of making things that I thought that would be important at all at that point, because I was still worried about technical aspects and does this ear look right? I don't know if you guys hear my dogs, I apologize. They're like our doorbell. If anybody's out front, they just start growling and barking. Yeah, so like one side's technical, on the other side I feel is like your compassionate side and expressive side. I feel like the technical aspects of painting and drawing have become intuitive to a certain extent. I'm still learning the technical aspects. I'm still like thriving to get better at what it is I'm trying to say and do. But the more compassionate kind of side takes over when it comes to kind of trying to get emotion into the piece or understanding their story within the piece. So that can kind of shine through as well. So it's not, yeah, so it is kind of, the technical aspects are there, but I think that it's it's subdued by the other aspects. And I'm not a painter that's an expressive, like throw a slash of paint or red to represent passion or something like that. I want it really to be, the better I am and the more accurate I am in displaying who this person is, and the more honest I am, the more honesty will seep through the painting, you know? And I think of it as really valuable painting, I feel, has kind of a fight in it, and it has a history of what the artist went through to make the painting. And that, what I mean by that is kind of, I think of the panel or the drawing paper as being this kind of absorbent surface that is absorbing every thought I have about the subject as I'm doing the drawing. And so I'm hitting this thing with, some of the thoughts are really simple, like, is this too light or too dark up here on the forehead, right? And so I want to make it darker. That's one thought. One area is it lighter? Is this part of the nose look right, or is this part of the upturn of the lip more like this or that, like angled? And so that paper is absorbing, and the canvas or whatever is absorbing all those thoughts that I have, correct thoughts and incorrect thoughts, you know? It's that history that just builds up into, you know, a painting that you've been working on for a year or two, you know, that kind of makes it into something that has weight. You know, it's not just a flimsy canvas or a flimsy piece of paper. You know, it's got all this artist's like time and energy into the piece. And so that, I think, kind of gives it a value, you know, along with the story of the subject, hopefully seeping through kind of spiritually through like an osmosis kind of thing from my eyes, from my time that I was sitting with the subject to the time of making the painting, you know. And then filming has just been amazing, because I think of it, thinking about these paintings that Rembrandt did, who I think was like one of the best to do this kind of thing ever, you know, was that I'd love to hear his subject speak. I'd love to know more about the context around the person's life that was painted by Rembrandt. I think that would be incredible, you know?
I think that we respond more emotionally to visual representation. And do you think it makes us more empathetic?
That's a great question. I mean, I'd like to say yes, but I don't know if I'm giving too much credit to humanity. I think that, say someone is kind of a not so nice person, that they hate another type of person, and they see one of my paintings and they don't know that it's a Holocaust survivor, and they see their grandmother in that person, and then they find out, oh, I thought I am supposed to hate this person, but that looks like my grandmother. That's another human being, you know? Maybe it'll open their heart up to being more empathetic. I mean, for me, hopefully, you know, but again, it's such an archaic medium. I don't know if it has the importance like it used to. It definitely doesn't have the importance it used to, but especially in the art world, you know, but I think if we keep fighting, we can break through, you know? I mean, the art world values bananas and duct tape. I don't know if you guys saw that. I don't know if Jill and yeah, knew that kind of reference, in Lara.
Yeah.
Lara knows, because Lara's an artist. Where's Lara?
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, good to hear your voice.
So do you think do you prefer to have background audio such as testimony accompanying your photos, or do you think that the image itself really speaks louder than words? Do you think it does something to have silence with it, and that you sort of create some sort of movement from the stillness?
Yeah, no, I would love for them to speak, like for you to hear their testimony. We're as part of this project I'm working on for the Facing Survival is so I have two brilliant producers, Richard and Chris, and when they came to me wanting to produce the so Jeffrey and I made the trailer that you guys saw, and then Jeffrey and Chris are like really shepherding us into developing into a documentary film, which is incredible. but they're also doing things where they're thinking about the documentary film first in first respects as Chris is thinking of it as an impact. How is this film going to have impact within schools, and how is it not just going to reach people that know about the Holocaust? How do we reach the people that don't know about the Holocaust? That's what we want. Those are the people we want to reach first. Not that we're not going to have it in have showings in Jewish museums or anything like that, you know, but we want to reach people that don't get compulsory Holocaust education, which unfortunately is a lot now. And then Richard is thinking about this in terms of AR and having an app. So you would go see the film, and then you could walk out into the lobby and you could see the paintings up close through your devices, which is kind of brilliant. And then I was thinking, and we were talking about this, we throw ideas back and forth, of you'd be able to listen to their testimony while you're in front of the painting. So the painting speaks to you visually and also orally. I think that's where we're kind of thinking of ideas of what can kind of grab the viewer, as well as just not just I always say archaic because it's just animal hair, sticks and dirt and oil, you know what I mean, that make these paintings. Sorry, we have like an Alexa that's going off in the background. So stuff like that. So we're trying to kind of think of like what Alex was just saying. So I think all senses can be kind of reached if possible, you know, in this process of what we're doing. So I'm kind of done kind of the block-in, kind of fuzzy block-in. Right now I'm going to kind of come in and think about things in terms of shoring up edges a little bit better right here. So I'm going to go with a little bit tighter of charcoal stick, which is a carbon stick. That's my movement here. Kind of get a little tighter with the reference. So it's my smallest. So I'm adjusting in here. This is the transparency. I don't know if you guys, oh, it's hard to see because of the reference. I apologize. And then we basically have size of the charcoal stick, and then we have size of the transparency. See, it's really, really simple app, which is pretty nice.
So do you ever just really, are you ever very much not happy with what you do and you just start over or make one big mistake and just, or do you really turn your mistakes into art? Do you ever just start with a new canvas or iPad?
Yeah, no, I never really erase. I just paint on top of what I'm working on. So that's a great question. I'm, to be honest, I'm never happy with anything I do. I kind of, and for me, it's really hard to let go of stuff unfinished, which is why I spend years on painting sometimes. But and again, it's about the experience. I remember I was doing the painting with my mom like 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe longer, actually probably 7 or 8 years ago now. And I was painting her hands, and I had some friends over, and they were looking at the painting, and they're like, wow, you know, that looks amazing. Like, why are you still painting her hands? Like, aren't you done? And like, they said, like, isn't the message already sent in the painting? And I'm like, well, I guess you're right. Like, it could be sent. Like, everyone kind of get kind of the gist of the painting, and the hands are pretty good. But for me, I didn't want to let go of the experience of painting my mom's hands, because thinking of, I mean, your parents' hands, and this is actually a painting I want to do. I want to talk to Alex about your parents' hands and just hands in general are like the first things you see as like a newborn, you know? And so I was having these kind of weird, like subliminal or subconscious kind of like flashbacks to when I was a kid, like super early, about painting my mom's hands and kind of remembering stuff that I was seeing from when I was a baby. You know, it was like a really great experience of spending time with my mom, even though I don't have the best relationship with her. You know, she lives in Florida. I don't see her very often and whatnot. But it was a way of kind of getting to know her better and just kind of, again, being more meditative and kind of therapeutic for myself. And so I just kept working on them, and I can always find, I don't think of myself as ever overworking a painting. I think of it as I'm just putting more understanding into a painting. I'm always getting the edges better, or the transitions of color a little stronger. And so I'm not thinking of it in terms of rendering it all, you know. So maybe I can't see it. Maybe I do.
Schloss?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Can you tell us about Ava Schloss?
Oh, Ava's amazing. She's Anne Frank's stepsister, and so Otto Frank was the only survivor of Anne Frank's family, and he married a fellow survivor, which was Ava's mom, and they actually Ava used to play with Anne Frank in Amsterdam before the war and everything. It was really interesting because Ava lost her father and her brother. Her brother's name is Heinz, and supposedly Anne Frank had a huge crush on Ava's brother, who played guitar and was very intellectual, and Anne Frank would always come over to the flat to play with Ava, but really to see Heinz. It was really interesting. And we met up with Ava in London. She lives right near Abbey Road. She's amazing. I would say if you guys know any survivors, don't drive with them. That's the only thing I would say. Everything else is cool. Just don't drive. We drove with Ava, and she's in her little car. Like we almost ran over a few tourists on Abbey Road, which was kind of interesting. Actually, I wonder if I even have that clip. Let me see if I have a clip of Ava on here.
Sounds like you drove with my grandfather, potentially.
Let me see if I can find this. I have a folder here. You guys, I don't think you guys can see. Oh, let me type this in. My computer is a mess. If you guys saw my desktop, you guys would be like, what?
The artistic way.
Yeah, I guess. I just sloppy. I need to clean it out every now and then. It like I always run into issues where my computer kind of locks up a little bit. Okay, so I have this really cute little video. So here we are driving with Ava. I'm gonna pop this out real quick. So we're in London, and we're going right over to Abbey Road.
That's the studios. It's Abbey Road for one thing.
If you guys can
Oh,
hear
this
it.
is Abbey Road? This is the wrong.
This is Abbey Road. Do you look? Where? Up here.
Can you point out one more?
And this is the famous crossing. Yeah. And that is the studio.
This one here?
Oh, Abbey Road Studios.
There are always hundreds of people taking photos and God knows what. And here's a shop where people shop with original records and things. Yeah.
Is the school going to come up on the left or the right?
But we drive from the left here.
Are you a Beatles fan?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I wouldn't buy a record for £200 or so, but I like the music. Yeah. And Paul McCartney lives just around the corner as well.
Still?
Well, when he's here, he has a house.
It's in London.
He has a house here, but he doesn't live there much. I don't know where he is. And there's a synagogue, the pastor as well, where he got just married. Well, a year or so he got married. He married a Jewish girl now. Did you know that, David?
I didn't know that, no.
And it was here, it's and that's the Orthodox synagogue. I belong to the liberal.
The Reformed?
Oh.
So yeah, that's why we don't drive with survivors. I don't know if you guys caught that. You guys, I can't hear any laugh track if you guys actually did hear that she did back into a car.
Kept going.
And then just kept going. And it was that day it was actually 9/11, and we were in London, and anything that had to do with anything American was kind of on lockdown, and we were going to visit the American high school. Actually, it wasn't a high school. It was, I think, just to call it the American school, which is like a lot of grades. And that school was kind of on lockdown when we were there, and they were doing some construction. And so she like weaved her way. She couldn't find the entrance, and we're just following her, and she weaved her way through the construction. And then we went downstairs, which was kind of in a courtyard kind of thing, and went into a 3rd grade classroom, which was in progress, and walked through the classroom into the office of the school. And they're like, "Oh, hi, Ava, how's it going? How did you get in here?" Because you had to talk to the security people. And it was just super tight security because of concerns and everything for terrorism at that time. And she's like a magician. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, absolutely adore her. She actually donated a part of the Anne Frank tree with seeds or something like that, which was a tree that was outside in Holland, in Amsterdam, that Anne Frank would tell the time of the year through in her diaries. And that tree died, and they gave parts of it to Ava, and Ava was growing it on her terrace, and it got too big, and so she donated it to the American school, so they have it in their courtyard, which is really beautiful.
David, I don't know if you know, but she also donated some saplings of that tree to Yad Vashem, and there's a tree right there. And
that's
so
amazing.
Her planting it, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Yeah, we have I have another video. I won't bore you guys with that, of her taking us there and looking at the tree, and a lot of footage that we filmed. Like I said, I think I've met with probably 42 survivors now, and it's been kind of on hold because of COVID and everything, but I think we're hopefully gonna start being able to travel again with like actually a real film crew now, you know, so we'll be able to actually get more moments like this. Hopefully, and we'll get to Yad Vashem, I'm sure, in Israel, so I'll be able to see that tree. It'd be nice to have footage of the tree in London and the tree in Israel.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Really cool. So I'm going to come in and just knock in some of the background here later to kind of go with the reference a little bit. If anyone, again, has any questions, feel free to ask me. Kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see some of my smudges here. A little bit bigger brush. Literally just going to come in here and just, since it's all pretty much the same value, this is going to help me to kind of understand the contrasts of what's going on within his face. I can see if I'm getting too light or too dark by judging it up against the background. Again, I tell my students to do this all the time, but you know, do what I say, not what I do. And I like it kind of looks a little bit like powdered charcoal, which is kind of nice. How are we doing on time? 6:22. We're gonna probably stop at 7, I think. Be great.
Oh yeah, just for context, David's in New Mexico, so if anyone was confused by time.
Sorry about
no, we have people joining us from all over, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a sip of my apple juice.
Thank you for not making me feel like the only one with apple.
With apple juice? That's when my wife walked in with apple juice.
Oh, great.
She's so sweet. Sheena, she's an amazing artist. Check out her stuff. She's incredible. And she represents Shana really well. As you guys know, what Shana means beautiful. Shana Madera. She's incredible.
Can you tell us about Raya Kravinsky?
Oh, Raya.
Raya Kravinsky.
Yeah, Raya. She's amazing. She lives here in Albuquerque. So her family escaped right after Kristallnacht to come to America. She doesn't classify herself really as a survivor because she was a little kid. And she kind of, even though, I mean, her family had a business and they left the business like to move to Chicago because they had relatives there. She counts herself as very, very lucky, but she runs the Cafe Europa here, the get-together that they have for survivors in Albuquerque. And yes, there's survivors in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is incredible, right? And there's actually a Holocaust Museum, a museum of intolerance, they call it, here in right downtown in New Mexico, which I recommend everyone go check out. It's small. It's kind of like almost like one large room with different exhibits that they have, really explaining the history. And it's a survivor that is a local survivor kind of funds it. Really incredible. And they were really they were super helpful for me meeting survivors here in Albuquerque, whom I painted, which was Raya and Andy Holton, who is a hidden child from Amsterdam. And he actually knew, he didn't know Anne Frank, but he knew the building that Anne Frank lived in. Excuse me, he called it the high rise back then. Like, oh, Anne Frank lived in the high rise. And so he got his family, unfortunately, he says that his parents made a very heroic decision to kind of leave him in a Catholic orphanage, and then they never returned for him. And so he got adopted by a Catholic family and grew up with them, and were hidden by them as well, I think, at one point. And then he came to America, I think, when he was 19, joined, I believe it was like the Air Force or some branch of the military, and became a ballistics expert, which is really cool. So he came out, I think, to Albuquerque to work with, I want to say like one of the labs here, like Sandia Labs. It's really great out here. People think it's like the Southwest and everything, but there's so many smart people in Albuquerque. I love it because I feel like it's the descendants of the Manhattan Project that just fell in love with Albuquerque and moved here. And so we have, like, I think the highest number of PhDs per capita in the United States. I could be totally wrong on that, but I think that's definitely true. I mean, it's such a great place. I love coming out here, and I love the sun. Everything cool?
David, I have a question.
Yeah, sorry.
Are the paintings that you paint?
Yeah.
What was the question?
How big are the canvases or the paintings that you create?
Oh yeah, good question. They're all life size.
Wow.
So they range in size from the big painting I did of 11 survivors. I did a painting of 11 survivors of Auschwitz, which I had a huge amount of help from the Museum of Tolerance out in LA, especially a woman, Alana Samuels, who helped me to meet all these survivors and organized a day that I was out in LA that they could come out and I could meet with them. I can show you just really quick that painting on here. So that's this piece right here. So this painting they're all life size in this painting, and they're, I can move this over to the corner. I'll just get rid of this really quick for now. So they're all life size, and this painting is 18 feet by 8 feet high. I wanted to keep 18, so that was important because of the symbolism of it. But it's made out of 5 panels that are put together, and they're all survivors of Auschwitz. And so the idea of life size to me is important because I want them to be human at a human scale, so that they're not monstrous, they're not giant necessarily in paint. I'm actually been talking to a friend of mine is an artist, and he makes tapestries out of his paintings, and we're gonna try to make some tapestries that are bigger and more imposing out of my paintings. So we're actually gonna do we're having an exhibition in Ventura, California, I think in April, where he's painting children who were murdered at the border of Mexico and the U.S. And I'm going to show the survivor paintings side by side. And so he's actually making the painting of Raya into a giant tapestry that's woven in Belgium. So here's another, like, shows you the scale of people in front of the painting. Now the painting's kind of elevated a little bit off the ground. There's John looking at his painting to give you an idea of scale again. John Adler, who was based out in LA at the reception. This is the presentation at the museum. We added quotes in there. I thought the quotes were really important to kind of speak to how this reflects what we're going through today as well with paintings. Here's some of the studies. This is a study of Renee, Firestone. And so I kept all the studies for the big painting. These are all smaller than life size. And these are charcoal studies I did for the show, for the exhibition.
David, for that 18-foot painting, what's the medium, like the specific paint that you use?
Yeah, it's oil on acrylic mirror. So acrylic mirror is a surface I love working on because it has a little bit more luminosity to it. So it's acrylic mirror. So it's actually, it's not a real mirror that's breakable. It's like a clear plexiglass that has mirror coming through. And so when you paint on it, there's almost like a double image that happens, and it adds depth to a painting because your darks, traditionally when you paint with oils, is that your darks are a little bit more transparent than your lights. You're building up texture on the surface with your lights. Let me see if I can show you a close-up of that. Kind of, this is a little blurry. This is from a video still, but my lights have a little bit more texture than my my darks. You can tell here a little bit more. And so your darks are a little bit more transparent and a little smoother. And what the depth does, it kind of makes it so it's a little bit more transparent so you can see into the reflection of the back of the painting. And there's kind of a space in the painting that's kind of clear, which I feel kind of, almost kind of, in like a weird artistic way, I guess is kind of spiritual, that it kind of holds the essence of the person, I feel, within that space within the painting where the painting hits the wall, you know? So I always think of things as metaphors, like the weight of the painting. I feel like these paintings should each weigh about a ton because of how much the survivors have been through and how much thought I try to put into each piece, you know? So that, and then also having that space for the survivors to always live within the painting is something I always think about. And so I use that acrylic mirror. There's Elsa. Elsa lives in Albuquerque, or used to live in Albuquerque. Now she moved to Houston, and she kind of became a surrogate grandparent for Shayna and I. Like, we go hang out with her locally at different restaurants. We always get brunch together at this place called The Grove here in Albuquerque. And she's amazing. Her birthday is on the Day of the Dead, the same day as the Day of the Dead. Here's just some other shots. This is Bill, Harvey, and I talking in front of the painting. Bill's in the painting right here. I don't know if you can see him behind there. I'll get back to painting, sorry, apologize. Great question though, yeah. I try to make everything life-size so that there's a one-to-one connection with the viewer. I want the paintings to be as human as possible. My goal is to make them, there's a term in painting called trompe-l'oeil, which means to fool the eye. It's usually used for still life painting, where someone looks like there's a tack that you could pick off with your hand, or someone paints like a I don't know, like a concert ticket or a theater ticket that looks like it's so real that it could come off the canvas. And I think of the paintings as I want to make the paintings look like they could come off the canvas as well. The subjects could talk to you, which I love that idea that Richard had about the AR app, you know, of having the paintings, and for educational purposes for me, like to get it into high schools where almost every kid probably has a phone or some type of device now, almost independent of the income level, that to be able to see the paintings in the classroom, you know, right there where I don't have to pay shipping costs to get paintings in front of people and make them, I guess the expensive part would be getting really good scans of the painting so that they were, you see every chunk of paint in the painting, you know, like right there, almost live.
David,
Like,
when you showed my grandfather the painting that you did, can you tell us about his reaction?
I don't think I was there for him to see it. I don't think he's seen the original in person. The drawing he liked a lot. Actually, I think I mailed the drawing to him, and he said he was going to use it for a commemoration ceremony, because I did a drawing of him and also drew Cecile as well. I mean, you might know of his reaction more. He was really, really generous in helping out and supporting the project, which is incredible. So I think he liked it.
What do you have a memory of your most or your absolute favorite reaction of a survivor to the painting, or not even your favorite, but just most memorable?
Probably John Adler. John Adler was in the film. We had an exhibition. It was actually on his birthday out in LA at the museum, and unfortunately, it was his last birthday. But he went up to the painting and saw it and started crying, and then he turned towards me and started he had a walker that he was working with to get around, and he literally just kind of walked his walker right into my arms and gave me this giant hug. And I started crying, and my wife started crying, and it was incredible, you know. That's probably the most memorable, I think, because a lot of times I don't know a lot of times if the subjects have ever seen the paintings finished, because they're not really, I don't exhibit them all that often. The museum exhibit was up for 3 months, so a lot of the subjects that lived out in LA were able to see the paintings. I don't know if Raya's seen her painting that I did with her. I don't know. Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping to get the show to New York. That's like my dream, is to have the exhibition at the Jewish Museum.
Right. Yeah, I know we talked about that.
Yeah, that would be an ultimate dream.
Have you ever had a survivor or a family member of a survivor watch you in the actual painting process?
Elsa would come visit me in Albuquerque. She'd come out to the studio to see me, not necessarily work on her painting, but work on the big painting I was working on. She came out to visit. It was accessible then. And she moved out, like I said, she moved out to Houston. And I'm hoping to kind of meet up with her. I actually want to paint her again because we've gotten so close. And also, if you're out there, or Emma, her daughter, if you're out there, I want to paint Elsa again soon.
Do you ever? Now I just completely forgot my question. I apologize.
David, do you have any Holocaust survivors who are uncomfortable to be painted? Have they refused, and why?
Yeah, the one woman, Paula, unfortunately, she saw the sketch I did, and she didn't want to be painted. I think because we had a really, that was an amazing day. We met up with her in her home in LA, and we went to California Pizza Kitchen for lunch, and then we went and she's in she was a child during the liberation of Auschwitz. She told her story was incredible about how because it was liberated by the Russians, and how they had opened up Canada. For those that don't know, Canada was kind of the area of Auschwitz that was the repository for all the belongings for the survivors. When they came into the camps, they would be put in this place they called Canada, which I guess they called it Canada because they thought Canada was like the land of it was open money. I don't know, it was like an abundant land. So it was, if they needed new glasses, they would try to barter with survivors that worked at Canada to kind of get be able to have new eyeglasses. Like Marion Tursky was one, his glasses broke, and Marion Tursky is a survivor who lives in Warsaw, and he's responsible for the Warsaw Poland Museum, which is an amazing history museum. It covers, I think, at least 2,000 or 3,000 years of the Judaic history of the diaspora in Poland. It's absolutely incredible, the arts, the history, everything up into the Holocaust. And he was in Auschwitz, and he was a member of a group of other survivors that were friends when they all went in, kind of. And they all helped each other kind of get through. Like, he needed new eyeglasses or he wasn't going to survive very long. And he said that his friends all gave up pieces of bread, like portions of their bread, to be able to buy him a new pair of eyeglasses so he could survive. Because you don't know if someone's giving you an order and you just can't see. They don't care. You know, they're just going to murder you on the spot. And he said shoes and eyeglasses were the most important things. Because sometimes the mud was so thick And you guys, if you've ever been to Birkenau, you can tell like they have tracks now, I think, down on the ground so that you can walk on things. But back then, like you could see where really hard to get around if it's muddy, and where you could lose shoes. You know what I mean? And so I think it'd be hard to. But anyway, so what was the question? I'm sorry.
That's okay. So it was if any survivors refused to be painted and why.
Refused, right? Yeah, Paula was pretty much the whole project kind of started with that collector wanting me to paint his mother-in-law, and she refused in the very beginning to be painted. And recently that collector, unfortunately, his mother-in-law passed away, and that collector kind of went to the gallery and asked if I could paint from photos of her. And then we kind of went into doing the commission, and then his wife, the daughter of the survivor, didn't feel comfortable with her being painted yet, which I totally understand. You know what I mean? It's so it is definitely a sensitive. You know what I mean? To be painted, and it's hard to. I find it hard to capture people who have passed away that I haven't met. Also, and so I don't really do posthumous all that often. Commissions and stuff. I've done a few. They haven't been that successful. But yeah, I mean, because art is so subjective, you know. I run into that a lot. But the majority of survivors are kind of honored, I think.
Do any of them reach out to you asking for a painting rather than the other way around?
No, not at all. I don't know if like I've been I don't know, friends of survivors have asked me to paint survivors. Family members have asked me to paint survivors. I've missed painting survivors because unfortunately I can't get around. I don't have funding to paint everybody, which is just what's heartbreaking is like I just had got funding to go paint a survivor and he passed away. My friend, she's a sculptor. She's an amazing sculptor, Amy Can, and her father was a survivor and he was like an underwater demolitions expert. Wow. During D-Day. After he survived, he was storming the beaches in Normandy, which was crazy, and his story was intense, like how he escaped. And then he joined the military, just like John Adler had done the same thing. He was in that earlier photo looking at it. That's why I had him saluting. He escaped to Palestine, and then joined the British military there. And then he fought Nazis in the desert in North Africa. And then eventually he made his way up through Italy and became a food exporter in Italy. It's incredible story. And then he moved to LA. I find it really interesting. Why did all these survivors move to LA? It's pretty. One of the survivors, Bill Harvey, who's in the big painting, he was a makeup artist.
Yeah.
Like he did Judy Garland's makeup, which is incredible. You know, and he told me like he's never thought he wasn't going to succeed. You know, he went to beauty school, I think. I guess that's what he called it, cosmetology school or something like that. Right when he was 19 in New York City, he saved his money to go. And after he learned his craft in New York, I believe, he moved to LA to work on movies. You know, and he lives right around the corner from the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles now, which is Beverly Hills, right? Really good.
David.
Good successful guy. Yes.
So I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
It's a little tough to hear you on our end, so.
Oh, sorry. Maybe my mic is that better? Is the mic?
Much better.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. So
I have a little card table I'm working on over here. Okay.
So when you're painting someone, how do you decide when you opt to paint them in color versus in black and white?
Yeah, oh, great question. You know, I start with the black and white studies, And usually it's a study I'll do before I do a full painting. So a lot of times I'm working on the black and white study just as a prep to do a full painting. And it's just a matter of time for me is when I have time to do the full painting. Like the drawing of Edward Mosberg, I was doing because he just automatically interested me. And so I'll do those as kind of quick studies because I'm really interested in the story and kind of, for me, I'm a visual learner. When I was in high school, I wasn't the best student. I was only a good student if I could write and copy stuff down so I remembered it visually. And so if I want to remember someone's story, I would do the painting of them or do a drawing of them. You know what I mean? Because it helps me to kind of reflect more on their story and the time that I spent with them. Like these stories I'm telling you guys right now from the survivors I've met are, my memory's really, I'm getting older, so I think my memory's really bad. And sometimes 42 Holocaust survivors, they get kind of mixed up a little bit in my head. But if I'm drawing as I'm talking about it, the memories flood back, if that makes any sense.
So the last question that I have for you is, when you're painting, do you ever paint couples that were both survivors and they married after the Holocaust, or do you only paint individuals?
Good question. Yeah, so there's a couple that I'm going to paint, Rachel and her husband in Canada. I met them in Toronto. And I'm going to paint them as soon as I can. I've been focusing on more smaller works lately. I want to make it a bigger painting, which will probably be like a 70 by 50-inch piece. I've done 2 twin survivors, fraternal twins, Bella and Rosalind. They were the second painting I did, and that's a double 2-figure painting. I actually want to paint more figures together. I would love to do a big painting like I did out in LA and New York. You know, find more survivors I can kind of put together in a piece. But I would need like a stage that I could have them all be together at the same place so I get the lighting right. And I really want to do another bigger painting because I think that I want to do something that's like that you can't ignore, something that's indelible. You know, not something that the smaller pieces are good because they're life size and everything. But I feel like unfortunately I need to do something bigger so it makes more of a statement. You know, and it's less of a portrait as opposed to kind of a I don't know, memorialization of these folks. But yeah, so I do the studies. Was that the last question?
Yes, unless there's any other ones.
I'm down with as many questions as you guys want to ask. I may not have the best answers. And I tend to ramble on, I apologize. I guess I have a lot to say and everything's trying to come out. I want you guys to kind of come along on the journey. You know what I mean? I want you guys to, if you're a painter out there, the subject, always interview your subject. You know, care for your subject. It's going to make a better painting. You know, get to know them. I learned that from one of my teachers, which she would do a commission, but she'd hang out with the subject of her commission for a day or two, getting to know them. You know, I don't necessarily have that complete luxury to be able to meet and spend like a day. Because when I was going through Europe, it was like we meet with a survivor in the morning and a survivor in the afternoon. And then we talk maybe online or I talk a little bit with the family, get to know them. You know, kind of how I've gotten to know you guys, Alex and Barry and Lara. You guys, and Alex, thank you so much. That gala event that we went to, Shana and I didn't know anybody. And it was great to talk art with Lara, and you guys made us feel at home. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
really talking with you. Really enjoyed it.
That was great. That was amazing.
Whenever we're back in person, everyone should join the YLA Gala. That's the one we're referring to. The next February, hopefully.
Yeah, I think you guys do it in January that time. I think that was the last time I was in New York City.
good reason to be in New York for the YLA Gala. Why else?
Wait. Also, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, everything is so. Do you guys feel like the quarantine was really slow at first, up until about June, and then it like flew by in a way?
Absolutely.
Is everything coming well together? I don't know if there's any place right.
If I saw someone a year before COVID, then in my mind, I still saw them a year ago. I don't even count this year. I get too confused.
No, I think it's also almost like, I think with like, I grew up with the seasons, right? And not having the seasons, to me, I wouldn't be able to count time as well, like understand time through like the fall, winter, and spring. And I feel like it's the same with like being able to leave the house. Although like I'm kind of introverted with spurts of extrovertism, I guess, whatever. But I've being able to be alone and just concentrate on art is been pretty, I've been really fortunate, you know. My poor wife though stuck here with me and my dad jokes. How are we doing on time? Oh shoot, we have 9 more minutes only. I gotta hurry up. So we thought of something cool. I don't know if this is going to work though, because I'm still trying to figure it out. So this NFT thing is this idea of being able to buy a digital version. Hopefully anybody out there in the audience who knows anything about cryptocurrency, I would love to sell this image with the video that goes behind it to someone digitally and have all the proceeds go to the Yad Vashem America or Yad Vashem Israel. I'm not sure how you guys break things up or whatever. And that way,
well, everything that goes to the American Society for Yad Vashem goes to Yad Vashem to support Yad Vashem in Israel.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so I think it's a good cause, and I think it makes this drawing kind of live on past. I'm going to mint it. And Jill, this might take a month or two because I need to figure out more about NFTs and all this other stuff that's crazy. And I'm going to tell Jill all about it and how it can be up for auction. If it doesn't sell, that's fine, I guess. We'll find someone that'll buy it and make it awesome. So it's a donation. And then also, you guys, if you guys out there and found this programming, I feel like I'm on NPR or on a PBS. You found this intriguing programming. They always do like a lot of really cool events and movie screenings. The Yad Vashem crew, Alex and Lara and Jill and Barry. Those are guys I know. I'm sure there's others out there that are on their console and stuff like that. Donate, definitely. I think anything can help, right?
Everything helps. Every drop in the bucket. Yes, thank you. And you know, we are so fortunate that we will, after this, hopefully be able to send everyone a really cool time-lapse video of David's painting or drawing.
Yeah, let me show you guys. I can do that right now. Oops, shoot. I hope I didn't just mess that up. Okay, so it's pretty cool. I can export this time lapse for full length. And I can send it to myself. That's my save video. You guys can see all this. So then, if you guys missed it, it's right here now. So I can send this to you guys to study kind of the process. And it started out really ugly, and I started kind of refining it. So it kind of goes through the steps where I knock in my darks, and then I start to build up my lights. I can actually condense this also. I think this will probably be about a minute long only, but I can condense it to 30 seconds as well. I'll ask Jill what she wants. Whatever it's easy to get to people, I think. Getting in that background really helped, I felt. It's kind of neat. I see all the mistakes I made.
That's the cool. See how you work it in.
I'm not a golfer, but I'm imagining it's like recording your swing, you know, where you can see where you're choking up maybe too much or you're too far back. I don't know.
Wow.
Lightning, mouthing, some kind of finishing touches. Awesome. I wish, again, I wish I had another 4 hours to work on this. Hour and a half or 2 hours, maybe kind of on is not quite enough, but hopefully it kind kind of gives you guys a gist of using these charcoals is really beautiful because it gives you kind of a nice texture to the painting, not like an airbrushy texture, which is nice. So it's digital, but it kind of has the feel a little bit of traditional. I'm definitely not going to give up traditional for digital. It's not quite as good, not quite as juicy, not as romantic, you know. Like here's something that's kind of cool. Think about these paintings, right? So oil paint never dries for real. Like the molecules just slow down over time.
Wow.
So if you walk into the Metropolitan Museum, the Rembrandt paintings are still alive. How cool is that? And for me, like to be part of that tradition with these paintings that I think are so important, and hopefully will be so important, that they're going to be living on way past us, you know, and that's kind of the goal. And to me, that's just like a romantic thing. I got that, so that's why I got to make these things really good, and that's why I'm kind of anal about them and neurotic about being a perfectionist. Is the brushstroke lasts longer than the hand that made it. You know, so if it takes me an extra month to do a painting, I'm going to do it because that painting is going to last a lot longer than me. So we try to make the best thing we can and not put time as well. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for again, for giving me a platform to talk about my work and my ideas on painting and kind of preserving your family's history. You know, it's a huge honor.